Rowdies. It's Dominic Casciato joining us. Coach, so nice to finally meet you, man. I'm very, very excited to chat with you today. How are you?
Yeah, good. Excited to be here. Excited to talk to you too, Jay.
Yeah, man, this is great. I'm one of the big supporters of the Rowdies here in the media here in the Tampa Bay area. So we will definitely become friends. You'll see me around a lot. So I'm
Good.
actually going on I say that now. I'm actually going away for 2.5 weeks. I'm actually a baseball coach myself. So I'm
Okay.
traveling to Alabama and North Carolina and going to visit my family in New York. So you won't see me for a couple of weeks, but when I come back, you'll see me a ton at Al Lang. How does it feel, man? How does it feel to get there on the training pitch, to be there, to be part of such a historic club here with the Tampa Bay Rowdies?
Yeah, I think for me it's a real honor to be given this opportunity. I think it's a responsibility that I'm really looking forward to carrying, and I'm just really excited about the project. You know, the history of the club. I think the direction the club wants to move in for the future. All of these things are really, really exciting. Obviously, being back on the East Coast, I was in New York a long time. Being back on the East Coast, being in Florida, being in Tampa, knowing what this club means to the fans, it's just been such a great opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to getting started with our first game and then eventually getting our first game at El Lang as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I was just mentioning before you hopped on about the job done by interim coach Steve Coleman, and it's tough when you go in there and you're kind of taking the reins of a club and you're kind of moving over to that different seat. And I just loved his approach of not trying to change too much with the formation, with the X's and O's, just focusing on the history of the club, focusing on like the pride and the effort and the little things that you can control. How important is it to be able to have him still with you, and just how was that transition with him kind of learning about the team? How, easy, not I want to say easy, but how has he helped you kind of assimilate yourself and get used to being around the Rowdies?
Yeah, no, it's been good. Obviously, I think Steve done a really good job in terms of stabilising the team. Like you say, not trying to rip things up and just stabilising the ship and get it in the right direction. Obviously, results started to turn around under Steve, and I think the players really responded to him. I think for me, he's been a great resource, right? Like we had a phone call that lasted, I think, about an hour and a half before I came in. I think it was, maybe Tuesday night, where we spoke at length, and he kind of gave me the rundown of how things are going, what's working, what's not been working, what we can still do to improve. So him and the rest of the staff have been a great resource for me as we move things forward.
And you got the new kit that we just released today, and I was like, wow, what a great way to I was like, holy smokes, man, that thing's pretty badass. When you see a new, I'm a kit fiend, man. I got them all over. I'm a big United fan. My great grandparents are from Manchester, so I have like Ronaldo's, and I have all these different kits that I usually wear. How cool is it to be? I'm like a kid. I'm like a little kid when it comes to that stuff. When you see a new kit being launched just a couple of days after you join the club, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, no, I'm used to obviously the yellow and the gold, right? The green and gold, but no, it's always good to freshen it up as well.
What is your style of coaching? When people ask you that, like what when they say, hey, the Rowdies are going to be this is going to be their identity, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, I think we're going to try and dominate games, right? We're going to try and dominate the game with the ball, which means we're going to try and get into the attacking half under control. We're going to try and create chances. We're going to try and score goals, right? And I think if we do that with the ball, people are going to be entertained when they watch us play. We're going to play great football, and the players are going to enjoy playing that way. I think without the ball, again, we're looking to dominate the game, right? We're going to press teams higher. We're going to make sure we get in people's faces and make it uncomfortable for them, especially when we're playing at Al Lang, because I think that's the Rowdies way, and I think that's what this club is all about.
Yeah, wait till you see like the Ralph's mob and everybody out there. Like we on a weekly, it's just they're relentless, man. They don't stop. And listen, there's been some dark times this year. Some of the games early on in the season where the result was just probably some of the worst that I've seen, at least in my time here in 20 years. And they didn't stop. They supported the entire time. And one thing that I have belief in this team kind of turning things around is what I call the core four guys that have been here the longest. When you look at Aaron Guillen and Forrest Lasso and Lewis Hilton and Leo Fernandez, when you have four guys, coach, that have been here for so long, how do you kind of lean on them in times of transition? How do you lean on them to kind of take your message and to be able to disseminate it to the other players in the club?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I actually met with those guys yesterday. I called all of the players when I was coming into market on Tuesday. So I spoke to everyone on Tuesday and then sat down with those kind of experienced players that you're talking about alongside Thomas. We sat down, had a meeting yesterday after training, after our first team meeting, and just kind of picked their brains, gave them some feedback in terms of what I was seeing and, the direction I want to take things in. And I told those guys, look, if we're going to get this thing moving in a direction that we all want, because ultimately we're all here for the same reason, right? We want the Tampa Bay Rowdies to be successful. We want to bring pride and joy to this community and to our fans. So for us, it was having that conversation, having open dialogue in terms of what's working, what's not working, what do we need to do, and then making sure that the messages that we're giving the players, or I'm giving the players, and the rest of the technical staff are giving the players, those experienced guys are helping to hammer home that message, right, in the locker room, on the field. They're the coaches on the field for us, and we're very, very fortunate to have, one, such experienced players, but then two, experienced players with so much quality as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Casti. Like he's been. We're so glad that he's back here. I mean, to be able to be back with the club, very, very exciting. I want to ask you about one guy in particular, Leo Fernandez, and a guy, a former MVP of the league. This is a guy that I ask him about this. Like, where's your where are you a guy that plays out to the out to the wing there? Are you a guy that's a number 10 that plays a little bit more centrally focused? When you look at it, early response, because I know it could change. Obviously being around, you see how the games kind of develop. Where do you see him as like his best position and how he can impact the team the most? Because I know he likes to play, in the kind of towards the inside in the middle of the pitch a little bit more. But man, his service is so good from the outside, even just in the normal run of play. It doesn't even have to be, a spot kick or anything like that. This is a guy that can really do some damage. So when you look initially, how do you think Leo can help the team, and where do you think the position that fits him best?
I think as long as Leo's on the pitch, he'll figure the rest out. I think Leo's
great point.
He's got so much quality. I had a conversation with him earlier about this. He's got so much quality that wherever he's going to be on the pitch, he's going to find a way to be effective, because that's who he is and what he's done all his career.
Right.
I think he's also a great guy, right? Who knows the club, who knows the values that the club have, and can help transmit those values to everybody else. Obviously, he's a little older now than he was, as we all are.
Right.
So we have to manage him carefully. But I think Leo Fernandez, when available, when fit, needs to be playing for this football club. And obviously, where that is on the field, obviously depends on a few different things. But I think wherever you put him, he's going to sacrifice and work for the team. And to me, that's always the most important thing.
Coach, when I was looking up when the news came down that you were joining the club, I was looking at your history and I was like, wow, El Paso Locomotive. And, with being so in tune to what happened with the U.S. men's national team, you see what, Diego Luna and how he was able to kind of like rise up and to really make a name for himself during the Gold Cup. What do you remember about your time with him? And can you take some of the traits from a guy like that and say, hey, I look for some of those similar traits and characteristics of players on your team that can kind of take their game to the next level?
Yeah, Diego was obviously a super special talent, right, and could do things in training that would blow your mind. But we have guys that can do that as well, right? I already spoke about, Leo really impressing me, and I've known of Leo for a long, long time. I was based in New York for a long time when Leo was coming up through Stony Brook and making his way in the professional ranks. So we have guys that can do really special things as well, right? I think with someone like Diego, and I think this is normally the difference between top players and top teams and average players and average teams is the mentality, right? Is that mentality to always get after it, to always give your best, to always fight and sacrifice for the team. And I think this is a group that has that and just needs to show that a little bit more.
How do you take into account where you guys are at in the table, right? Because obviously the mindset is always going to be like, you got to play it one play at a time, one half at a time, one game at a time. But, looking where you're at and you're just 6 games out, but there's a couple of teams ahead of you that have played more games. How do you find that balance to make sure that you're taking it one day at a time, but also having that urgency of going like, hey, we obviously haven't done ourselves any favors early on in the season, but we got to kick things into high gear so we can get back into the top half of the table so we can really make some noise and make the postseason? How do you find that balance?
Yeah, I think you do have to take it one game at a time. And I think if you do that, you can build momentum, right? If you get too carried away with yourself, then I think you can lose momentum and then obviously you lose sight of what's important. I think obviously the best way to do that is not taking it one game at a time, it's taking it one day at a time and one training session at a time, right? And one exercise at a time and giving absolutely everything you got in every single exercise. And I think if that's our approach to practice, then the games become easy, right? Because you're flying in practice. When you're flying in practice, you go into games, and the game is the easiest part of the week, right? When results are not going your way, or things have not been quite the way you want them to, or you're used to them being, then obviously things become a little bit more complicated, and the game becomes more challenging on the weekend. But when you build momentum by working really hard through the week, by having confidence, by having a very clear message, which is what I'm trying to give the guys, then I think when it comes to game time, it's just about executing and repeating what you've been doing all week.
What's the most important thing for you? Obviously, I mean, I'm a United guy, so I follow the close of the Ruben Amorim. They brought him in. He goes, I really want to start in the beginning of the season. They're like, you got to take the job now. He's like, okay. But he said how difficult it was, like, to start in the middle of the season. Obviously, they switched from a back four to a back three, so it's a completely different system altogether. What's the biggest adjustment that you have to make as far as implementing your style of play based on what you've already seen from the team this year? Are we going to see a drastic change, a minimal change? Because it's tough. Like, sometimes if you do have to make a change, like we saw with him, you got to go through the storm a little bit. You got to go through some of the negativity before you start playing the way that you want to play. How do you kind of find that, all right, I want to implement my style, but if we do it too much, then we might put ourselves behind the 8 ball too much to not be able to make the postseason. So what's that thought process like?
Yeah, I think that comes down to my judgment of the group, right? Like, in terms of what I feel like they can take on and implement now, and then what might be best saving for later. You know, these first 2 days of practice, we've just looked at a lot of defensive stuff and kind of prioritizing how we want to defend, and what that looks like. And I think once you nail that piece, then you can start to add more bits in. But I think the skill of the coach is having a judgment to know, all right, I can add this now, and this bit has to wait, right? Or okay, now they're ready for this piece. And obviously, that I'm gonna take that on a kind of day by day basis in terms of where the group is at and how things are going. But it's not an exact science, right? And I think that's the beauty of coaching, is you have to have your finger on the pulse of the group and where they're at, and be able to adjust when you need to, because you've got to be flexible. And I think probably never more so than when you're taking over a team mid-season. This is the first time I've done that, so it's a great challenge for me, and one I'm really embracing.
What do you like about, and maybe not what do you like about, but one thing that I try to, because again, the sport is growing here in the Tampa Bay area, and I've always tried to find ways to be able to, especially a couple of years ago when the USL Super League became a thing and teams were trying to break away there in Europe, I was explaining it to the people here that maybe aren't big soccer fans by using an analogy of like college football. Like, if Ohio State and Alabama left and they try to make their own conference, and that's kind of like, Real Madrid and Man City going, yeah, we're going to do our own thing over here. But there's the beauty of the pyramid. There's the beauty of the promotion and the relegation and the cup competitions. What can you say about, as far as like what the USL, I mean, obviously coming from League One and just seeing, even some of the cup games that we've seen already this year, they've been fantastic. How important is that going to be over the next couple of years to grow not just the game, but the USL as a whole, to be able to, just continue the rise of this sport in this country?
You mean the Jägermeister Cup? Or
yeah, all of them. I mean, just the fact that we have them. I mean, we didn't even have them a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no, look, it's great to have more competition. I think having more competitions and more games is going to just get more exposure for the game in this country, and allow more people to follow the game, to be exposed to it, and to fall in love with it, right? In the same way that you and I did, however many years ago. So, no, I think it's only a good thing to have more competitions. I think, from our standpoint, obviously we're in the Jägermeister Cup, which I think is a great addition. Obviously, things have always been about the playoffs in US sports, not just in US soccer, but I think adding promotion and relegation gives a really nice, different twist to things. Maybe puts us more in line with how the game operates in the rest of the world. And I think that's going to lead to the level of competition becoming a lot higher, and there being way more meaningful games throughout the course of the year, because something's always going to be on the line, right? I think right now, if you're not in a playoff spot, some teams may have the mentality that, okay, we can just wait and go again next year. Whereas if you're going to get relegated, you can't do that, right? You've got to be fighting until the end to stay up. So I think it's going to make things more competitive. I think the coaches are going to get better. I think the players are going to get better. I think the fans are going to be more invested. And I think all of those things are great things for the game in this country.
Before I let you go, what do you like to do off the pitch when you're not around the game? Are you a movie guy? Are you a golf guy? What do you like to do? Do you like to go to different restaurants? What's something outside of sports that you really like?
Yeah, I love going to good restaurants. I need to find some good ones here in the Bay Area. Yeah, I'll look forward to that. I'll get a list from you later, Jay. But nice. No, I have a 17-month-old at home, And he keeps me pretty busy, so I love spending time with him and my wife, and doing different things with him.
Who was the club you supported growing up?
Tottenham Hotspur.
You're a Spurs fan. Oh, man. Killing me from the cup final, man. But listen, you feel good. You can feel good for Spurs fans, the lifelong.
It doesn't happen very often, right?
Nah, man.
A moment in the sun when it comes,
You got that right. Rowdiesoccer.com for all the information. Listen, the team is going to be on the road for a while, but of course you can catch them always on Tampa Bay 44. This game's on ESPN Plus in San Antonio Saturday nights. A little bit of a late one, 9 p.m. There's 5 games before the next home one. August 16th, I'll be there. Saturday, it's a late one, 9 p.m. against Phoenix Rising, and it's going to be on ESPN2. That one is going to be – I cannot wait for that game. Going to be amazing. Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the Tampa Bay area. We're so glad that you are here. And, have a great rest of your week. Best of luck this weekend, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Top man, Jay. Thanks for having me.
You got it, buddy.